Is Darwin Nunez bad? What are your thoughts? Are you a fan of Darwin, or are you going to accept the unpleasant truth? After being acquired for an initial fee of £64 million, he scored on his Premier League debut but was then dismissed in the following match. Nuñez, who is 23 years old, claims that he would have no idea what Jurgen Klopp, the manager of the Liverpool football team, was saying if it weren't for two members of Klopp's coaching staff. "There isn't a lot of back and forth," he remarked. "While I am not fluent in English, he is not fluent in Spanish." Yes, that was a little bit jiggly, but we will be clarifying things in advance so that you may form your own opinion about them. When confronting Darwin Nunez about his misconduct on Monday night, Liverpool manager Jurgen Klopp may choose the arm around the shoulder method with the forward in order to defuse the situation. Anfield's newest signing had a night to forget against Crystal Palace after the player, who had previously played for Benfica, passed up a series of clear-cut opportunities, first while the scores were tied and then after Liverpool were behind in the game. Things took a turn for the worse in the second half when Nuñez was shown a direct red card for an unnecessary headbutt that he delivered to Eagles defender Joachim Andersen. Nuñez's response, despite the fact that it cannot be denied that he was provoked by the centre-back for Palace, was one that let down both his teammates and himself. The Uruguayan international made frantic efforts to defend his innocence, but replays demonstrated that the decision of referee Paul Tierney to immediately send him out for a straight red card was the correct one. Klopp ignored Nuñez as his striker walked off the field, but after the game he insisted that he will have a conversation with the 23-year-old to attempt to put an end to that kind of risky behaviour. The manager of the Reds admitted that there was provocation, but that their response was unquestionably inappropriate. That experience will teach him something. Unfortunately, he still has 3 games left in which to complete that task. It's not cool for us, but that's just the way things are. Naturally, I shall have a conversation with him. When I got back inside, after the game, I immediately turned on the television to check on what was going on. During the game, I was unable to say anything, yet I still managed to figure out what had taken place. But despite the fact that fans of the other team are so eager to see the 23-year-old fail, he has had a rough start that is in accordance with the Reds' own shaky and injury-plagued fortunes. And Erling Haaland's goal-laden start at Man City has meant that the verdict is still up in the air. During the pre-season, compilations of his worst moments were quickly and enthusiastically put together after his games against Manchester United and Crystal Palace. However, he responded to his detractors by scoring 4 goals in a match against RB Leipzig, which effectively shut them up. He would then come off the bench to score against both Man City in the Community Shield and Fulham on the first day of the Premier League season, as he swiftly wanted to get his feet under the table. Fulham was the team he scored against on the first day of the Premier League season. Yet any early momentum was abruptly undone when he was sent off for headbutting Crystal Palace's Joachim Andersen, retaliating after being inflicted to little short of an hour of heavy-handed treatment and baiting. This caused his complete debut and first game at Anfield to end prematurely. After serving a suspension for 3 matches, Nuñez returned to action against Everton, starting the game. Afterward, he came off the bench against Napoli and Ajax. In the Merseyside derby, Jordan Pickford made an outstanding stop that prevented him from adding to his scoring totals. As a result, he was unable to add to his totals. In the meantime, an excellent opportunity to get the game-winning goal for Liverpool during their encounter against Ajax was wasted in front of the Kop. Nuñez was left to kick his heels on the sidelines back at Anfield as Haaland returned 14 goals from his first 10 appearances for Man City, picking up the Premier League Player of the Month award for August in the process. As a result, the Uruguayan's critics have re-emerged from the shadows in recent weeks. Haaland returned 14 goals from his first 10 appearances for Man City. In the process, he picked up the award. However, the striker has been through a lot of situations like this before. After making a club record transfer from Almeria to Benfica for the sum of €24 million in September 2020, he had a difficult beginning to his career with the Portuguese club. On the field, he struggled with COVID and dealt with an injury to his thigh, and as a result, he was only able to score 6 goals in his first season with the club in the Primeira Liga. He cancelled his Instagram account to avoid being subjected to a barrage of abuse, and he participated in frequent sessions with Evandro Mota, who was Benfica's sports psychologist at the time. Both of these actions were taken in an effort to revive his career. In the end, he was successful, and a season in which he scored 34 goals then followed the year before. In the Champions League, he scored 6 goals against Barcelona, Bayern Munich, Ajax and Liverpool, which prompted interest from elite clubs all over the continent. However, Liverpool ultimately won the race for his signature. And having worked closely with Nuñez at Benfica, Mota, who also worked with the Brazil squad at the USA '94 World Cup, including current Liverpool goalkeeping coach Claudio Taffarel, has no doubt that he can go on to enjoy similar success at Anfield despite the difficult start he has had. Mota worked with the Brazil squad at the USA '94 World Cup. After all, the Uruguayan's maturity when he was just 21 years old shocked everyone, and it would appear that history is repeating itself for the forward, despite the fact that he is better prepared than ever before. When an athlete has the guts to admit he needs some support, it is so much easier to work with him, Mota recalled to 442. When an athlete has the guts to confess he needs some aid, it is so much easier to work with him. That's Darwin. He was always one step ahead of his time. He had an open mind and was willing to listen to the proper people. When people are forced to contend with an overwhelming amount of criticism, we advise that the best course of action for them is to cut themselves off from the environment that is causing them harm. Darwin is a boy who expects a lot from himself and has come to the conclusion that the things he does on social media would only bring him down. Since coming to Liverpool, Nuñez has been guilty of spending an excessive amount of time looking at social media, as was brought up by Klopp in a previous conversation. After a sluggish beginning to the pre-season, the manager of the Reds confessed that he does not understand why his striker participates in it. We have the mentality that if you spend a lot of money, the players won't feel any pressure or anything else like that. They are all entirely typical examples of the human species, and their initial contact does not feel quite right, but all of a sudden, he said. This current generation of players reads social media, despite the fact that doing so is not particularly intelligent. You don't know what hit you, but suddenly you're in a rush and other such things. However, despite the fact that he is a different striker than the one we currently have or the one we once had, he is an extremely good one. He had previously triumphed over a great deal in his life, and that experience has assisted him in becoming an even better professional. Because of this, he is an absolute treasure. Not just in terms of the technical merit of his work, but also in terms of the intelligence he possesses. He continued, "It was a whole different culture for him when he joined Benfica. I was impressed by him. Something that he said stayed with me for the rest of my life, and I shared it with our head coach, Jorge Jesus, right away." Darwin answered, "Look, I know I have a lot to learn and to keep accumulating experience." This coming from a young man aged 21. Do you know how many times I've seen a youngster being this mature and humble at this age, even after fulfilling his dream of helping his parents buy a home? I've been working with some of the best football talents for more than 4 decades. Do you know how many times I've seen a youngster being this mature and humble? Very, very rarely times. Nuñez expressed his apologies in the locker room after being dismissed from the game against Crystal Palace. He then took to social media to further express his sorrow. "I know I had a lousy attitude," he wrote. "I'm here to gain wisdom from the mistakes I've made. It is something that won't occur again." Mota believes that the striker will only be stronger for the experience as he looks to leave his mark on the Premier League for Jurgen Klopp's side after the September international break. Criticism was unavoidable as a result of the situation, but Mota believes that the striker will be stronger for the experience. Mota commented that the act of apologising demonstrates how humble the person is in question. When you refuse to acknowledge your error, you are forced to come up with explanations for it. However, if you never confess that you were wrong, you will never be able to fix a problem. It doesn't matter to him what other people think of him. His major objective is to develop as a football player and continue acquiring experience. He doesn't give a damn about what other people think. He has already competed in a wide variety of competitions, including those in South America, which are much more difficult than the Premier League in terms of provocation and violence. Prior to this, the only time he had been dismissed from a game was in the Spanish Segunda División. He has already competed in a wide variety of competitions. Therefore, you should not believe that he is that player based on just one episode. We can anticipate defenders to attempt to get more into his head now, but I have no doubt at all that he'll be a great hit in the forthcoming leagues. And this will never happen again. Because he has been through so much in his life, He values every step he makes forward and will make the most of the opportunities that come his way. He's a special boy.